Okay, here we go. I've been yakking away and I've had myself on mute. God, I do that. Let's start again, shall we? Hi, Karen here. Welcome to Deliberate Creation Talks with Karen Swain. Oh, gosh, I tell you what. Anyway, I was just saying, as you were watching my lips move and not hearing anything come out. Hey, Judy. Judy's joined us. Hey, Judy. I was just saying that I was just chatting to the mob just before I went live, because I've made a bit of a commitment to show up live every Monday at 11 a.m., 11:11 actually, it was when I started, a.m. in Australia, which is a Sunday night in the Northern Hemisphere. And I said, what are we going to talk about today? And the guides always say, when I ask them this question, talk about what's been happening in your life, what you've been talking about, what have you been discussing lately? And the first thing that came to mind was I had a meeting here in my house recently to discuss a big festival that we're going to put on in Bondi, the Bondi Pavilion this time next year. And it's with so my gorgeous friend, Joe Figliano wants to bring the conscious community together to collaborate and create a beautiful festival this time next year at the Bondi Pavilion, which is an iconic pavilion at the iconic Bondi Beach. So we had a meeting and we just talked about so many things about, who's listening to this conversation, who's joining events, why are they joining events, what do people want to know, where are they in their spiritual journey or their consciousness expanding journey. And something that we discussed was that the most important part of this spiritual journey or this consciousness journey that we're all on is to really clean up the subconscious programming that you've got going on that is a big part of your operating system as a human being. So we were talking about, we see so many people who jump on the sort of spiritual consciousness journey or the difference makers journey, the activists. They're coming from a heart-centered place, knowing that they are knowing at a deep level that we are one, that they are one with the rest of humanity and the earth. And they want to, make a difference and change the world. I want to change the world, but they don't do the personal work first. And I have a friend who has helped a fabulous documentary that came out recently at the end of last year. It came out called The Power of Activism. Go to thepowerofactivism.com and you can see it there. And this is about six Australian young women who are making a difference in the world. They're all activists. And what's the cost of being an activist in the world on you personally and financially, and what's the cost of activism in the world? It has a bent where she talks about, she's making a documentary about activism. How can she make a difference to any other documentary about activism? We're going to look at the dollar value that people who go out and change the world have in the environment in the world. And that's a really interesting topic to talk about. But they also talk about the personal cost it has on the women who are out there changing the world, climate change. And there's one girl, Gabrielle Stewart, who's going to places like Asia and Indonesia and wanting to stop people from killing sharks. She's an ocean activist, shark activist, and she personally paid the fishermen to stop killing the sharks for shark fin soups, and then educated them about how to make more money by using their boats for tourism and getting people to look at the sharks rather than slaughtering the sharks for, this shark fin soup. So it's really interesting, but what's the personal cost? And this is what we were talking about in the meeting. If you want to go out there and change the world, you really, really have to dive into the personal journey first and clean up any any messes that you've made in your life. When I was a young girl in my 30s, I did a personal growth workshop that talked about the messes that you've created in your life. Is that if there's people that you're not talking to, like an ex-husband, an ex-wife, an ex-girlfriend, a parent, a sister, a grandparent, you've had some trauma with them, then your participation in it means that you've created it along with what they've created too, even if you were the victim. So I was the victim to a violent father as a child, but they asked me to ring him up and ask for his forgiveness, not say, I forgive you, but ask for his forgiveness, which is big, right? Big. And I did it. And I did it because, not to make him right in any way, but I needed to clean up the hurt that I was carrying inside myself, and that forgiveness, to give back, to forgiving, to give back to myself the ability to raise my vibration and be more connected to my source of divinity and who I am as a loving, unified, peaceful being. And while I'm holding resentment on anyone, no matter who it is and how they've hurt you, then that can't happen. And as we move out and in action into life, wanting to change the world, we put on seminars and podcasts and meditation and yoga and, whatever we do, teach, and we're still holding that vibration within us. It's really important to do the work. So the festival that I'm involved in is called Love Fest. And I asked them, what's your angle? Because there's many forms of love. There's love for self, love for family, love for society, love for community, love for the planet, love for Mother Earth, love for the cosmos. What angle are you looking at that love in this Love Festival? And we talked about that personal love, because when you do clean up those messes in your life, as the personal growth workshop talked about, you actually give more love back to yourself. And so when you set forth in the world to be a teacher, a spiritual teacher, a consciousness teacher, or someone making a difference in other people's life, a counselor or a healer or whatever you want to call yourself, just somebody on a spiritual journey, when you set forth to make a difference in someone's life, if you're not carrying your own baggage, it just makes the ride really much more enjoyable. Here comes the cat. Much more enjoyable, and you don't get burnout. So what was interesting about this documentary called The Power of Activism is, for the first time in a documentary about activism, they were speaking about the consciousness component. Although they didn't call it consciousness, they spoke about the emotional component and how it's important to come back to self and back to your divinity and really come from that place of that connection, rather than coming from a place of anger. When you see things in the world that are not fair, that are terrible, that are upsetting, and you set forth to make a difference with your anger, like, I'm going to change the world, I've got to change this, I've got to stop this. There's a group that I belong to on a social media platform where there's a lot of that talk, and they're always posting, terrible things that are happening, corruption and lies and political corruption and, and pedophilia and all this stuff. And there's a lot of sort of pushback. When you're fighting the good fight from a place of resistance, that's when you get burnout and you get sick. So if you wanted to make a difference in this world and really be a part of the unification and who we are, changing this world, let me have a look at this. Sorry, I'm just looking on the streaming platform to make sure that it's all happening. It's good to do the shadow work. So I'm just looking at your comments now. And Opal Essence says, I've been doing shadow work for the past few years and applying healing modalities on myself. I intuitively got that I needed to do that first, go inwards before applying it to the world. Exactly. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Opal, hi. Hi, Opal Essence. And self-love and compassion first. Absolutely. And you know what? This is a journey that never stops. It's like you never reach, I guess you could if you're an ascended master, but for most people, let's say most people, the majority of people, you never reach this point where you're completely, this ascended being in love and light. You're always going to bump up against contrast in the world and contrast in yourself, which is going to activate negative emotion. And if we can understand that negative emotion is there to guide us in some way, that the pain that we live both emotionally and physically is our guidance system, showing us how we're flowing our energy and where we have resistance to the flow of love, then the traumas that we go through personally, the pain that we go through personally, cease to be a victim of them, and you start to sense them as just guidance, as information showing you where you're still holding onto resistance and allowing love to flow in your life and in others. And the more love that you can flow in your life and in your body, the healthier you'll be, the happier you'll be, and the more power of influence you have over your family and friends and indeed this world. So yes, exactly. Your personal growth journey is so vitally important. So vitally important. How are you, Judy? Thanks for joining. Have you got any questions that you want to ask on this? I'm going to ask to unmute you. No.
How's that?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. No, not really. I just joined and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I need something to drink and all this. But it's Sunday night, like 9:15 or so, almost 9:30. So I'm just kind of laid out here. But
Yeah,
I'm enjoying hearing what you're sharing, because it's kind of new to me.
New to you. Yeah, fair enough. I know our clocks went back. Where are we? It's Monday. They went back on Saturday, and so now we're moving into winter time, and you guys on the northern hemisphere are moving into summertime, and it makes a huge difference. I think it's like 4-hour difference between summer and winter, and so now when I come on at 11 o'clock, it's much later in the evening, which is kind of okay, which is kind of cool, I think, because so you're in Eastern time. It's like 9 p.m. or 9:24.
It's Eastern Daylight Time. Eastern coast of the U.S. So, yep.
Yeah, and on the other side of the planet, the other side of the country, where are we? We're like
9:24.
6, 7, 8, 9, 6 in the evening, which is kind of dinner time for many people.
That would be 9, 10.
6.
I'm sorry, they're going backwards.
Yeah,
because my daughter-in-law's in the almost in the time zone that California's in. So except she's in Phoenix. Anyway, it's always good to see you and hear your wisdom, though.
thanks, darling one. So okay, so getting back to what we were talking about, how is it that we clean up our negative emotions? Because so often when we get upset about something, we really believe that what we're upset about is because what's happening outside of ourselves. And the whole reason that we're upset about it is because of what we believe inside ourselves. So when we look at injustice, for instance, and we get really angry about injustice, I mean, how are we holding on to feeling like life isn't just or it's not fair? I mean, how is that relating in our personal life? For everything that we witness outside of ourselves, we're perceiving it through the filter of our subconscious programming, our belief system. And so it's always guidance. Every time we hit a negative emotion, it's always guidance to what is really going on within us. So Ascended Masters, the other day, we had the Inner Sanctum yesterday with me, and we were talking about, we got into Jesus, we got into so many things. It wasn't recorded. I did record some of it because Joanne was sharing her angel stories, and I said, can I record this for the group because it's really cute? But just a few of us showed up to chat online and share stories, and we were really getting into Jesus and religion, and I was channeling the guides towards the end. We were talking about ascended souls, and we get so fixated with ascended souls who walk the earth, like Krishna and Buddha and Jesus and Muhammad and whoever else we deem as an ascended soul. And what the guides were saying to me yesterday, that on the planet, they didn't say millions, but there are hundreds of thousands of ascended souls now on the planet that have incarnated into physical form to be a part of the shift in human consciousness as we change, as we upscale and we change eras and epochs and move into a new experience for planet Earth. And they said there are millions, in fact, light workers. I don't know if any of you listened to the show I had with Adam Apollo. We were talking about the Unify movement. He was one of the co-founders of Unify, and he said he speaks to over 100 million, or the movement speaks to over 100 million people on the planet who are wanting peace and unity and, more love on the planet. So there are literally millions of light workers on the planet who are concerned with the way this world operates and wanting to see a different world, a fairer world, a more unified world, more collaboration and less competition, and changing gears here on planet Earth. And there are hundreds of thousands of ascended masters or ascended souls who have incarnated onto the planet, who are in physical form, who are here to assist that shift. That was pretty heartwarming to hear that actually yesterday from the guys, the mob. I shouldn't call you guys, you're not guys or girls, but the spiritual team that I speak to, who are, of course, the ascended masters. I call them a mob. I put them all into a big group, whether it's the galactics or the angels or the archangels or the ascended souls or the dead relatives or dead friends. I just shove them all into one group and call them the mob, because I'm talking to spirit, and different flavors come through and different intentions come through. And as I speak to different intentions, like when people are speaking about their dead loved ones, often the dead loved one will come through and talk to me, and I'll bring a message through, which is kind of nice. Or if they're speaking about Jesus, the energy stream that flowed through the being that was Jesus will come to meet me, or the Mother Marys or whatever, but it's all part of the spiritual mob. I just put it all into one big group. And so just because, sorry, I'm just going to mute you, Judy, just because, so how can I speak to them in spirit if they've incarnated on the planet into physical form? Well, you could speak to me in spirit. In fact, I have one of my favorite teachers, Michael Tamora, who has died, I think he said 7 times now. He's had 7 near-death experiences. The last time I put him on the show, he had 5, but I think he's had a couple since then. But I speak to him in spirit all the time. I often feel him around me as a spirit, because we are physically focused and spiritually focused simultaneously. We are not spirit and then that spirit incarnates into a physical body and now we're not spiritually focused, because we are multi-dimensional beings. So we are so much bigger than the body personality, the emotional body personality complex that we identify with as us. We are the consciousness that inhabits that body mind personality complex, and that consciousness is vast, and it is living out all its lives, both incarnated and not incarnated, simultaneously. It's a bit mind-blowing, I know, but we can speak to people who are incarnated into a physical form. We can speak to their higher self or their soul, as spirit, as guidance, while they're still living out physical lives. I think I don't know if I first learnt this, but I experienced it years ago. My mother had died when I was 16, and she had reincarnated as a family member, and that family member was a child at the time when I was sitting in the shower. How old was I? I was in my 30s, late 30s, and I was just meditating in the shower, and my mother appeared to me in one of the most clear visions I've ever had of any spirit, of anyone in my life. I shut my eyes, and in clear color, I saw her face in profile, just like a floating head. And then that profile face turned and looked at me. When she turned and looked at me, and she'd been dead for years by then, when she turned and looked at me, I knew she had something to tell me, but I was really busy, so I shooed her away. And as I tried to shoo her away by opening my eyes, I got this sense of her, like I felt her so viscerally. It's so interesting to feel someone. It's like when you're beside someone in a room and you close your eyes and feel that presence when you're not looking at them, because we're so used to perceiving people through our 5 senses. Like we look at them, we hear them, we smell them even. But even when I was perceiving my dead mother at the time, I could smell her, I could feel her. It was like every sense was engaged, and it felt like she was standing next to me. And I was at a funeral for my first stepmother the other day, and it was the same feeling. We couldn't see her. In fact, her body was an open casket or open basket. She was in a basket. Love that. She didn't want to be put into a big, expensive wooden box and then that burnt, because she was cremated. I love that they're not sort of chopping down trees to create these big funeral boxes. Anyway, so it was an open basket. So there was the focus on the body, which I kind of think is interesting because she's not inhabiting the body anymore. And I felt like she was standing right next to me. And it's interesting to have that sense of what it feels like to be in the presence of someone, when you can't see them. Like you could do it when people are sitting next to you on the couch. Just close your eyes, or maybe, like if you're in a house with your family next door, like they might not be in the room, but close your eyes and sense that presence with you in the house. And that's what it feels like to sense spirit. I've gone a bit off track. Let's have a look. 6:25 on the West Coast. Yes, and this is why we choose to come here, to have challenges and to overcome them and grow. Opal Essence is at, you're on a roll, darling. What's your real name, Opal Essence? This is your YouTube name. Love that name. I'd love to know your real name. So I'm all over the shop. Where am I going with this conversation? Do you know, Judy, where was I? I got off track when I was talking about mum and dead people. And
You were talking for about the fact that the oversoul is still present while there are parts of it that are incarnated at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. Because we get so linearly focused, and that we think that life happens in a linear timeline, the way we live our physical lives. But once we leave this physically focused experience, we no longer engage in linear time. From this physically focused experience, I don't really understand what time is like. I've heard people talk about it, and I've had this this aha moment, as if I've remembered. But because I'm physically focused as I speak to you now, I kind of forget what that's like. And but I understand it. But even though I'm living in linear time, I sort of forget what that's like. So it can seem confusing. Oh, the guides are telling me. So they're using the analogy of the internet and watching things on the internet. So especially now that we have streaming, in the old days, when I say in the old days, programmed television means that you have to show up in front of the television to watch your program. But today, that's not necessary, because anything that you can watch on television, you can stream in your own time by getting in front of the internet and streaming it when you want to watch it. You don't have to show up when it's playing on the television. You can watch it in your own time. And what they're saying is that time on the other side is like that. You can experience anything in your own time. So you can experience the past, present, and future in the now moment anytime you want to. Just like you can show up in front of your computer or on your phone and watch anything you want to watch in the time you want to watch it. They're saying time is like that on the other side. Interesting. Very interesting. And so what are we going to talk about? Deliberate Creation 101. These are about creating the life you want. And I think I started talking about creating a better world through first working on your personal stuff first, working on your subconscious programming first before you set forth into the world to change the world. But you don't have to be perfect to set forth, and knowing that when you do set forth to go out and make a difference in people's lives or in the world, or to save the planet in any way you think you want to do it, know that that guidance that you're going through when you hit obstacles, when you hit traumas in yourself, is guidance showing you where you're still holding on to resistance in yourself, resistance to the flow of love. I think Deepak Chopra said it so beautifully years ago. Resistance is like a wall holding back the flow of love. So I had an interesting conversation with my daughter this morning. We were talking about relationships and how she was judging a relationship a family member has, and she doesn't like the relationship that they have. She doesn't like the person they're with. And I said, but it's not for you to choose who that person's with. That person's with, that, whatever's happening is their own personal journey. Don't judge their journey, because the soul has a different idea of what is wanted than the personality. And I said, like a mother who wants their child to be happy, when their child is in a relationship that's tumultuous, we say, get out of that relationship and be with someone who's nicer and going to treat you kinder. But maybe the soul is choosing that relationship because they're learning so much from that relationship, especially if that person is someone. My daughter is very passionate about mental health, and she teaches people about mental health, and she teaches it through the way that she interacts with the ocean and free diving. And so she does attract a lot of people who have a lot of emotional problems. And as a mother, I would prefer her to be with people that make her happy. But then the guide said to me one night, how else is she going to know about mental health if she doesn't experience it firsthand in her relationships? And I'm like, oh, right, exactly. So I was explaining that to her as she was judging another relationship that she didn't like. And she said, it's funny that you always get the insight about how valuable the relationship was, even when it was traumatic while you were living it, but you always get the insight to the value of the relationship after the relationship is finished. After you've finished, done with it, you can see what you're learning. But at the time you're going through it and you're going through the fighting and the trauma and the arguments, you don't get the insight. And the guides, well, I said to her, it wasn't really it, but the insight that came to me was that's because at the time you're experiencing the trauma, you're in resistance. So resistance says, I don't like this. This shouldn't be that way. This is wrong. You're wrong. I'm right. You're not giving me what I want. This is all that energy of resistance. And when you're in resistance, whether it's against your relationship or your job or how your body is appearing or how you're experiencing, whatever you're experiencing, your body or relationships or the world, when you're in resistance, as Deepak said, resistance is like a wall holding back the flow of love. So I'm going to quote a few of my favorite teachers. I love doing this. So as Byron would say, when you argue with what is, you lose. Byron Katie. But only 100% of the time. So resistance is arguing with what is. This shouldn't be this way. I don't like it. I don't want it. I want it to change. And that's fair enough that when you see something you don't agree with, you want it to change. But in order to get life to change, you have to first change yourself. You have to change what you believe about it or how you feel about it. And when you do, and you let go of the resistance in yourself, you'll be amazed at how quickly and miraculously circumstances can change, including the resistance in your own body, like pain. You'll be amazed. Like I was saying to the group yesterday, I was sitting on the couch watching Bridgerton, I think, some streaming platform at night. This is my life. It's so exciting, watching streaming platforms at night. I find it relaxing actually to turn off and just watch another, movie about something else. And I had this pain in my hip and I got off the couch and I could hardly walk. And I felt like a cripple walking around it. And I thought, I'm just stiff from sitting in a certain way. It'll be okay in the morning. Well, it wasn't okay in the morning. I got up in the morning and again, I could hardly walk. So there's some resistance going on in my body. And what I did was I had an Epsom salt bath and I used the golden white light to wash my energy body, to wash my physical body. And as I was soaking in the bath, not only was I washing my physical body through the bath, I put essential oils in the bath too, but I was washing my energy body in the bath. And I have to say, when I got out of the bath, I didn't feel miraculous, like all my pain was gone. But the next day, I was completely pain-free. So just letting go of that resistance and seeing pain or negative emotion as something that is showing you that you're holding resistance and then dealing with it at the time. Let me go back here to any questions. Has anyone got any questions? Let me go to the live. Who's watching? How many people? Oh, we've only got 4 people online watching. Such a huge audience I get. So I don't guess there's any questions. Show live chat. No questions. Well, I might leave it at that for today. Unless you have anything you want to say, Judy. No. And I'll go off the live chat and I'll just have a chat with Judy. Yeah.
Okay, I unmuted myself. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So the message for today's deliberate creation is, before you want to change the world, look within, as where's my restream going? As Opal Essence said, yes, self-love and compassion first, do the shadow work. I posted something on Instagram which I thought was really cute. There's a meme that somebody said there was a little toddler who had discovered her shadow. She's in the sun, and obviously the sun's low in the sky, so there's this nice big shadow in front of her, and she's trying to run from her shadow, and she's screaming like she's terrified of her own shadow. She's going, ah! And she turns around thinking she can get away from it and looks down, and there's this big black shadow. And she goes, ah! She falls over and starts crying. And the meme was, I can't remember what it said, but something like, when you discover your own shadow, trying to run from, anyway, I can't remember what it was, but it was hilarious, scared of our own shadow. So we shouldn't be scared of our own shadow. The shadow work is so important because the shadow work is the contrast we experience in this world is all part of what this world's all about. And it has valuable things to teach us, the shadow work. So don't be scared of the shadow work. All right, guys, thanks everyone for listening and watching, to the people that are listening and watching to this after the live stream. And I'll be here this time. As I said, the clocks have changed, so it's probably a different time for you, same time for me, 11 a.m. in Australia, which is, between 6 and 9 in the northern hemispheres. And now that we've put our clocks back, the east coast of Australia is now all on the same timeline, because in summer, when we put our clocks forward in New South Wales, the state above us, which is closer to the equator, doesn't want their clocks to go forward. So then we have two different timelines. So it's, crazy. But we're now on the same timeline, and a couple of hours before us, around lunchtime, is New Zealand. And I'm going to be doing another Meet Your Spirit Guide course, which is getting you connected to your spiritual team and the subtle energy of spirit. It does incorporate deliberate creation. It incorporates meditation and tuning up your vibration so that you can perceive subtle energy, and also doing that readings on each other so you can get that feedback. So let me know if you're interested. I haven't put a date yet. I need to gather at least 6 people online to do it. It's not expensive. It's $295 Australian, which works out at, it's about 180, I think, American, and maybe about 200 Canadian. And then I say that whoever has done the course can come back and redo it again as many times as you like, and just do a donation. You don't need to pay again. So let me know if you want to come and do the course. I'd love to see you there. Meet your spiritual team. We do a guided meditation and activation to activate your subtle body, a light body, and to get you tuned up so that you can more readily perceive subtle energy, the subtle energy of spirit, your own inner self or inner being, talking to your higher self, your mob, your team, your friends in spirit who have left this world, your galactic team, the angels. They're all yakking to us all the time. And it's so great to have them online so that you can hear them like you're never alone. So let me know if you want to do that, and I'll catch you next time. Big love. Bye for now.